No wonder why you never become an expert at anything, because
Yeah, 'cause
you're
you're doing a
jumping all
million
over the
things.
place.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I went from posting regularly to suddenly not showing up.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have people DMing me, "Are you okay? Is something wrong?" And when I announced
Right.
my pregnancy, they're like, "I knew it.
Yeah.
I knew something was going on with you. I knew it."
Yeah, because
Like,
every single
yeah.
morning you're waking up, you're like, good morning.
Yeah.
Well, I think the consistency is really important on social. Like if you're really wanting to grow, I think it's always very awesome to put together. I don't think you need to be wed to a follower number or an engagement number, but it's great to have a goal.
You got to make a real decision and then meet it with a commitment. How
Yeah.
do you balance your personal brand with your work?
That's a great question.
Today, we are looking back on 2025. What content has gone viral, what is trending, and where we see it going in 2026. I have brought on my friend, Natalie Buchoz, who is a media expert. She is incredible at knowing what is happening, what are all the trends, and really how you can incorporate some of this into your personal brand. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode. Have you ever thought to yourself, it's too late? I have lost it. I've lost my time when it comes to social media. I am way behind when it comes to my personal brand. I'm too old. Who am I now that maybe I'm in my 40s or 50s? Who's going to listen to me? Or I'm a BTS girl. Okay, I'm behind the scenes. I'm not an out in front type of person. Why the heck should I build my personal brand? Why the heck should I create content? What do I even have to say? Who the heck is even going to listen to me? I don't even know what I would say. These are all thoughts that I know that you are having. And because you are having them, okay, I brought on my best friend, Natalie, to share with us how she has broken through the noise that has been in her head, okay, the limiting beliefs that she maybe has had. Because in the last year, my friend has gone from not posting on social media at all to becoming a regular on social media, to now having her social content turn into opportunities for keynote speaking, for consulting gigs, and so much more. Natalie, thank you for being here. And I just want to acknowledge you because when I met you, you were hiding.
I know. I know. I'm the first one to admit it. You know, I think we'll take people back kind of on the ride a little bit. And if you haven't listened to our first episode that we did together, we did that last year and we really deep dove on my story, but I'll give, some of the highlights to catch people up. When I was 15 years old, I had a spinal cord injury that left me paralyzed from the neck down. In a freak skiing accident. And obviously the life that I had thought that I was going to live, being a very driven, possible collegiate athlete and all of the things in between, was taken away from me. And I had to work really hard in recovery and getting into college and in my career. And it was interesting. I had this very pivotal moment. I think this was 2 years before I had met you. And I had somebody ask me at work, just, kind of like a random question about my story. And it got me thinking, wow, nobody has any idea, really, new people that I meet in my life, really, all that I've gone through because I don't share it. And also in the corporate world, you don't really ask. You're not like, hey, what's this? You don't ask. It's like, everybody keeps it very professional, which I think became very comfortable for me for a long time. Because it was like, well, if I don't talk about it, then it's not real. But unfortunately, and you're not seeing it here because I'm on the couch, but I use a wheelchair to get around, and it's very hard in many different ways. And I think many people, when they look at somebody that has a disability, they think that the wheelchair is the most hardest thing about our lives. And really, yes, the transition was hard, but I would say that that's actually the least hardest part about my life. I think if we're thinking of my injury as my mountain, which I have been talking about in my keynote, is that my mountain wasn't just my chair. It wasn't my diagnosis. It wasn't my new reality. It was everything that was underneath it. It was my anger of what happened to me. It was my resentment. It was my comparison. It was my fear. It was my sadness. And that was something that almost was like a pimple at the top of the surface, ready to be popped right when you and I met. So we met 3 years ago at a conference, and I remember when we met, you and I had talked about you wanting to write your book. And we kind of bonded over things of that. And I've helped many authors write their books and put together marketing strategies, PR strategies. And it's like somewhat of a passion. And also a big reader. So it felt like a very unique friendship. And I remember you and Jake had asked me, you know, you have such an insane story. Like, I don't know why you're not sharing it. And I remember a very quick answer. Well, I'm more comfortable behind the camera in directing and producing and in strategy. And I think you were like, okay. And we were new friends.
Yes.
So it wasn't like I'm gonna hit you with it, an Emily right in the smack dab in the face.
Into this.
Yes. Yeah. And I think the more we got to know each other, obviously, in talking about the mountain and talking about some of these things that I had been working on internally, the one thing that made me more uncomfortable than anything was talking about my story publicly, because I had a very well-known story in where I grew up, and people followed along, and there was a lot written about my story and my recovery, and it was exhausting. It was exhausting living a life through a narrative that wasn't mine. I didn't even know how to reclaim it at some point, because I think for a long time I just wanted to be Natalie without Natalie that had a catastrophic injury. I just wanted to be Natalie that was driven and that was motivated and that had faith and loved sports and loved animals and just who I really was, right? But I think when you hide from yourself and you distance yourself from who you really are, then it gets really hard to hear her. And so that's why it's so important to surround yourself with people that really see you for who you are. And I remember you and we would have some really deep conversations with that. And it was funny because it was almost like the first time things that I had said to myself in my head, somebody was saying out loud, and I had to like converse with them.
Wow.
And I was like, you know, like everybody, when you're jumping into a state of something really uncomfortable, your first immediate thought isn't, let's dive right in.
Right.
Let's go from zero to trauma. You know, it's not. There's a lot of resistance. And so I think with me, last year in January, I had the opportunity, I was invited to this amazing conference called the Women in Sports Conference. It was a conference of high school female athletes, all around the same age I was when I got injured. And they had asked me for a couple of years if I would come to speak. And I always said no. I made up an excuse, I can't, or I'm too busy, and all of it. And I finally was like, you know what? Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do a keynote. They asked me to do a 45-minute keynote and a 15-minute Q&A after. And I think this had to be God, because I'm a very type A person, and I didn't really ask any details other than that. I was like, okay, great. I'll put together my keynote. I'll talk about XYZ, which we'll get into later, and we'll see where it goes. And the conference organizer called me the day before, and she said, we're so excited. Can't wait to see you. Here's all, the arrival info. And I said, hey, so how many people are going to be there? And she's like, well, there's going to be like over 3,000 people.
Oh my
and I said, I'm so excited. I'm so glad that I asked. And I got there, and it was so interesting because it felt very cathartic in that I wasn't really nervous to go on screen, and I wasn't really nervous to go on stage. But it felt like I was talking to the younger version of me in that audience, which completely shifted the whole mindset that I had started with, last year, that which we were talking about, of like, oh, I can't do this, or I'm too uncomfortable to talk about this, or I'm not qualified enough to talk about this because I haven't done this for a long time, or whatever it may be, which I think are a lot of reasons why people don't do something. But you're never going to get good at something if you never try.
100%.
If you never try. And so I got up there, I did my keynote, and at one point during the keynote, me and the girls, we were just vibing. I mean, it was like we were laughing. We had this moment that I'll always remember, where I had asked them, I said, can everybody in the audience just stand up? Just get into your feet, stand up. I know you've been sitting, you've been listening to a couple speakers now. Why don't you just all stand up? And everybody stood up. And I said, right now, if you have the ability to stand on 2 feet, make no mistake, you have everything that you already need. I know it's very loud in the world that we live in right now with social media and getting into college and being an athlete and performing and all of this, but you have so much, but you're not grateful for it because you don't acknowledge it. And make no mistake, having pressure and having opportunities athletically is a privilege. And I wish somebody told me that when I was playing, because I was so hard on myself playing. I wanted to be the best, and I'm so competitive, and I never really took a chance to just be like, wow, I just love the sport. And I love getting to be a captain. I love getting to have teammates, and I love getting to make these memories. And I'm so grateful that I have mobility to be able to do this. And so, in that moment, watching all of them, it gave me such a different sense of the way that I viewed my story. And one thing that you said to me that I believe is a Brene Brown quote, but it takes so much vulnerability to allow yourself to be seen.
Yeah.
Which I think so many people that come online or want to come online or want to speak, it's like they don't want to look at themselves in the mirror, let alone let other people do the same.
Right.
But often, and what I found in my experience, I had an incredible mentor come up to me, and this was maybe 6 months before you and I met. We had this great lunch, and I brought up this term. This term is called inspiration. I'm just going to give like a trigger warning, porn. And it's a very big world in the disability community. It's a word that is almost has quite a negative connotation, because a lot of people that have a disability want to just be like everybody else.
Right.
They want to just like go to the grocery store and not have 50 people jockey to hold the door for them, which is nice, don't get me wrong, but sometimes you just want to like exist and not be stared at for your chair or whatever it may be. And so this term is basically a term that has been created, which is where people that have disabilities become somewhat of like a statement of inspiration and almost like a marketing, inspiration term for like a big story instead of a person, right? And I think for me, I had held on to that for a little bit, because everywhere I had went, it was like, oh my gosh, you're so inspirational. I'm like, I'm literally just getting a bagel with cream cheese. I'm just living my life.
Yeah.
I think and I just want to be me. I just want to be Natalie. I just want to be normal. I just want to be normal. And so I held on to that for a little bit, and I brought that to her, and she was like, And I'm like, what? And she's like, that's not you. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And she's like, well, nobody thinks that. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, I think you're not giving people enough credit. She's like, anybody that knows you doesn't feel bad for you. They don't pity you. They don't feel bad for you. They're like, you are our inspiration because you're badass.
Totally.
You've gone through so much. She's like, and most of the time, I don't even see the chair. Yeah. She's like, she's like, and there's been so many times where I've gone through things personally that have been really hard in my mobility. And I think about you, and I think if Natalie could do this every day, I could do this for X amount of months.
Straight up.
And I can get through this. And she's like, and I'm not going to let you take that away from me. And I started to think, I'm like, in my big struggle of wanting to just be like everybody else and to hide and to just not, be who I am, I don't know. It really started to add up, and all these conversations and all these, environments that I was placed in, I was like, I think I want to do something differently. So I said yes to the conference. I did that. And afterwards, the questions that the girls had asked me, it wasn't even about, and like I said, it wasn't even about my career. Like I had spent so much time thinking I need to build this big career and I need to do all these things to be qualified enough to go up there. And all of the girls, they didn't even care about that. Like they wanted to talk about what it was like going to school with a disability after not having one. Did I lose friends that I thought were going to be in my life because of what happened to me? Did I feel like a fish out of water? How did I deal with the way that I looked? Like they were all very intimate, sweet questions.
Wow.
And so I don't know, it completely changed the way that I decided to show up. And my word of the year last year, and I usually don't do word of the year, so it was very funny. I felt very called to do one, but it was uncomfortable. Which is funny because usually people choose words like transform or change or grow, and I chose uncomfortable because I wanted, instead of doing a New Year's resolution, I wanted to do one thing that made me uncomfortable. And that one thing was talking about my story publicly.
Oh my gosh. And then, so you go from doing the speaking engagement, was it around the same time that you were like, I'm going to start showing up online?
I had started showing up online 6 months before that, actively posting. So posting multiple times a day, and not just in relation to things that I was, not just highlights in regards to my career. It was also, things that had happened to me in my daily life. Like you and I talked about, I would do my church debriefs and what I would get from each message each week. I started sharing different moments in my car where I would talk about things that were really hard and frustrating. I talked about one of my most viral videos that I had last year was that I talked about how it took me 12 minutes to open an Altoids can. And for those who are unfamiliar with quadriplegia, it impacts 4 limbs, including the ability to open and close your hands. And I really wanted an Altoid. Girls got to get an Altoid. Yes. And it took me so long. I had plastic on. I had to rip it off. And by the time I actually got it open, I was like, I didn't even want the Altoid anymore. I was so frustrated. And I sat to myself and I thought, am I really going to let an Altoid can ruin my day? It is literally a can of mints. It's not that deep. It's not that serious. I'm not going to let it ruin my day. And I thought about sharing it and I was like, this is kind of cringy. Should I share this? And I'm like, you know what? No, I'm going to share it because there are so many people out there right now that their hands are just flowing. They're opening mints. They're going about their day and they have no idea how much they have.
Right.
And I'm going to be the one to teach them a little lesson and let them reflect for a minute and get out of their space. And so my whole strategy really has just been sharing my life authentically, whether that is great things that have happened, whether those are hard moments that I've learned, whether that's things that I'm dealing with in my mobility. And I don't know, it's the way that I've connected with people that have known this about me, that are new into my life, different opportunities that have come from it, has made it worth the while because everybody has something, and maybe not every single person that has followed my story has dealt with paraplegia or quadriplegia and whatnot, but everybody has their big mountain that they have inside of them. And the people that I've gotten a chance to speak to, whether it's online or whether in person after keynotes and whatnot, they all share them, as you know, in your talks. I mean, listening to you at Aspire a couple of years ago, I mean, gosh, you had grown men, entrepreneurs, business CEOs in the front row weeping their guts out when you talked about shame. I'll never forget that. And I was looking around and I'm like, I wonder if you go home and you think about the visceral reaction people have listening to you speak. And I remember looking around and I felt like the mom from Mean Girls with the camera up, like, that's my girl. But listening to the reaction that people had where you were brave enough to get up on that stage and share your shame and what you had struggled with so that it would allow people to open up and to feel theirs. Maybe even for the first time ever.
Right.
And so that has been such a fun learning experience. But that was like ripping the Band-Aid off.
I mean, straight up ripping the Band-Aid off.
Right.
I want you to take me back because I know there's someone listening to this right now. They know that they're ready. They need to go online. but they are so scared.
Mm-hmm.
Did you like map out your content beforehand? Was it like, I'm just going to try this one thing right now and then post it and see what happens? Like, it wasn't that long ago that you did this.
No.
Can you take me back to what you were feeling? Did you have to go like post and then kind of run away for a minute? Like, what was that like?
Yes. Okay. So my grandma is one of the most special people in my life. She's so amazing. And during my injury, she would create these scrapbooks. And these scrapbooks were physical photos and magazine articles and newspaper clippings of my injury. And she just, I mean, for every single year. And she tried to give them to me. Gosh, Grady, I wonder how long that was for years. And I was like, it's okay. I don't want to see them. I don't want to see them. And when I said yes to the keynote, I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to do this keynote, I need to have some stuff on my feed so if people want to follow me and keep up to me after, they can kind of, have an understanding. So I thought that I would do this series where I would go through the scrapbooks with people and take them all the way back to what it was like. Natalie before I got injured. So I thought of the series that I would do. Kind of like, how Vogue does Vogue through the years.
Yeah.
And they have celebrities sit down and talk about their life and looks or whatever it may be and what was going on and some inspiration behind that. I kind of did something similar just with my story. And so what was interesting was that in some of those videos, so I did 5 videos that were a minute long, and I did certain hard moments. So I started with like the Natalie before, I started with the injury day. Then I moved to physical therapy. I went to high school and I kind of took it beyond. And that was really fun. And it was very interesting listening to the response from people, because there was a lot of people that had followed me for quite some time that had sent me personal messages that were like, this was really, I followed your story for a really long time. I hope you keep doing these. But it was very much that I'm going to post and like the phone's going on airplane mode.
Uh-huh.
Like I don't even want to know what's happening there. Like I'm going to look at that like tonight after work and we'll see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And then after having the response for that, I was like, maybe I should go a little bit deeper. And maybe I should consider talking a little bit more about different levels of my faith in between that, because that was something that I hadn't done online before, was talking about my faith and my relationship with God and how that has impacted my injury and the way that I view myself through my injury and so many elements of that. So then I kind of took it a step further where I talked a little bit about, I think spiritual moments that I had throughout my injury and what that looked like, and different ways that I think my mind was changed through my belief in God and learning scripture and in so many different areas in that capacity, which was really, really, really fun, because I think that was the first time I ever fully authentically showed who I was online.
Wow.
And even though, like talking about my story through like the Scrapbook series and whatnot, that was me talking about my story. But I mean, truly who I am and whose I am in a digital format, no one knew that.
Was
except
that
my family.
Talking about your faith?
Mm-hmm.
Was it at first like, oh, should I share these beliefs? Or did you just feel so good about it?
I think before I was like, I felt so great about it. I was like, I always make this joke that things might seem hard, but they weren't as hard as the day that I broke my neck. So like hitting post on the internet in comparison to what? So that's kind of like always been my motto, like in comparison to what? But I did have in the back of my head, like, oh, what are people gonna think? Or what, like, how is this going to change the way that people view me or whatever? And so I definitely had that. I think that's what the enemy does. He always, whenever you have a little bit of cracks in your armor, you have trauma or you have different elements of doubt and whatnot, then, instead of bringing that to life, which I'm a very disciplined person, I could have very easily brought that to somebody and been like, should I do this?
Yeah.
Should I not?
Which you have to be so careful of those opinions. Because if someone's not locked in with the Lord, they're going to be like, tone it down, annoying.
Yeah.
Right?
No one cares.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you should keep that in your diary. But I didn't. And I was just like, I'm going to do this. And I but it was still uncomfortable. It was still very uncomfortable. And the response that I got from people wasn't about me. which was a very interesting learning point that I started earlier in the year with the Keynote. And then this was like February and March. And then people started sharing what has happened in their life, in their relationship with the Lord and their walk, and so many different elements of trauma that they had been through, which I think one of the biggest lessons that I learned last year in deciding to share my life, and I know that you can absolutely probably attest to this, is that pain shared is pain divided. And so I think in the way that we grew up as well, it was always taught that you got to like have it all together. Right. You got to have it all together. Right. You can't share. Mental health isn't real. Got to keep it tight, button it up. Everything's fine. But everything wasn't fine. Right. I lost the ability to walk at 15 years old. I lost not just my mobility, but my identity, who I thought that I was going to be. I lost so much confidence. And I'm so blessed that I have such an amazing family and friends that always really saw me for me, which was so helpful. I mean, so many people don't have that, and I'm so grateful that I had that. But the internal struggle was still very much there. And I had gone to college. I went to USC for college, and that was the first time in my life that nobody had really brought up the chair. And also nobody really knew what happened to me, and they didn't know anything about my life or my family or anything. It was like I could just go and be Natalie. It wasn't Natalie that had this catastrophic injury. And so that was really exciting for many ways. And then going into my career, that kind of also snowballed into I was just another employee. I wasn't Natalie with this injury. But it also like allowed me to be comfortable. Right. And that hung out for a little bit, because the longer that you stay comfortable, I feel like the enemy voice gets louder, because you're so comfortable. You're like, I'm gonna do my job, and I'm gonna do great, and I'm gonna do this and that and whatever. But like deep down, you still feel like, and I felt like this for a really long time. No, like I'm meant for more. I'm meant to share. There was no way that I was supposed to go through all of this and be such a yapper like I am and not share it with people and help people. And I remember early in my injury, I felt very, very, very called to want to share my story to help people. But then the enemy got into my head with like, you're not qualified. You're, you have a disability. Like, this isn't like, you're not really that worthy. You shouldn't be doing this. Like, you're very different. And that lasted for a little bit, which is like when we had met, we had talked about that really at great length. But I think the biggest thing that I've somewhat realized in the last 5 years is that, the only and the biggest hurdle that holds people back is their own perception of themselves. For sure. Because, even like meeting you, like you had said, you're like, oh no, you call me when you're ready. Yeah. But I'm going to keep reminding you, and I'm going to keep pushing you, because I see this for you, even if right now you're not seeing it for yourself. Yes. What do you think has been one of the biggest things that helps you push through when the enemy is attacking you? I think for me, being in stillness, being in complete silence without my phone. I always joke that my car is like my hot yoga. Yeah. I always joke to my husband, I'm like, turn the AC off, put the heat on, get me in my car alone, and let me just pray, and let me like soak in the word, and let me stay in it, and let all of the noises around me be gone. Because I think that's really hard when you have a dream or you have something that you're really, really, really excited and want to do, but then you share it with people, and then you put it here, and then you put it here, and then you're like, oh my gosh, there's so many cooks in the kitchen. I don't even remember what I wanted to say. Right. And so that's been huge for me. It's like what Pastor Mark talks about, is having your like quiet place. Yeah. 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 Your secret place. Secret place. Thank you. Yes. What do you feel like specifically going to, we go to Oceans Church together. What has that done for you? I think specifically for my faith journey, from when I first got injured to now, there's been such a different, I think, fire in me to want to share more of it boldly. And I think as like you grow up, it's like, especially I'm sure you can attest to this as well, is that it's kind of, faith has always been a very like private. It's been a very private, thing that you pray or that you do with your family or going to church. And nothing has been private about my life. From the second even before I got hurt. Like I've always been a very extroverted, competitive girl, an athlete. I've always wanted to do really big things with my life. I wanted to play D1 sports, and I've always been a very, very driven girl. But then with my injury, I've had so many massive miracles in my life that absolutely cannot be explained, and that I've shared, and I've shared with you, and that I can't hold on to them. Like I can't hold on to them, and I don't want to.
Yeah.
And I don't, and we've talked about this so much, in that we're not supposed to.
Yeah.
Like we're not supposed, and I know that we're taught as young women to like, okay, be quiet, be a good girl, but I'm not quiet.
I'm not a good girl.
I'm not quiet. Yeah. And I hope that, again, like in wanting to be more bold about sharing my life and sharing my faith, is that it helps other people see that, I don't know, just gives them a different perspective. Because I think, again, like living where we live and being very ambitious, it's very easy to always look in the bucket of, oh, I could always have more. I could always have more money. I could be more successful. I could go more places. I can have this property, whatever. Like it's always more. And it's never, I am so blessed because I already have everything that I need.
I'm already loved.
Yeah, I'm already loved.
Valued.
Yes.
And, you know, both of us being very ambitious women, career driven. What have you learned about your career? I mean, you're very successful, what you do. You've transformed brands, people, your ability to understand media, your pulse on it. Now you've moved on into the speaking realm. There's a lot to you. What have you had to work on or learn about your self-worth and confidence when it comes to identity, career, all of that?
So I've been working alongside Dr. Daniel Amen. In February has been 10 years. And I always joke that I would love to write an entire op-ed on him, on all of the free therapy I've got from working with him for so long. And the one biggest thing that he has taught me that has helped me immensely, and I know has helped so many of other people around the world, is that your thoughts are not facts. Your thoughts are not facts. Your thoughts can come from all different types of places. They can come from your ancestors and how you grew up, and different deficiencies you might have in your body. And that we treat every thought as a fact. Like I could wake up this morning and be like, gosh, the hair ain't doing it. I should cancel because I look so bad. And then I could come in and I can see you can be like, wow, the hair is giving. It looks great. And it's like we treat all of our thoughts, and we're not taught growing up to challenge our thoughts, to discipline our thoughts. And it's been something so helpful for me, because even going back to what I shared earlier in regards to being different and using a wheelchair to get around and being very comfortable and getting stared at a lot just because of my chair. It used to really, really hurt me because I would go out and I would be like, I just want to go out and I want to wear an invisibility cloak. I just don't want people to stare at me. I don't want to be different. And my mom said something to me which really always stuck with me. She's like, I think people just look at you because you're just very pretty.
It's true.
And you have a very sweet energy. And people are very curious. Oh no, here we go.
Don't do this, please.
You do the same thing, but it's like, but she's like, you just don't really know what people are thinking. And she's like, and it's really easy to kind of sit in what you think people are thinking, but where does that get you? That's not factual. That's not what they're thinking. And she's like, and Dr. Amen says this as well too, and that like sometimes people might be giving you a funny look because they're constipated.
This is true.
Seriously.
Gosh, you could take this advice that you're giving to us right now that your mom gave to you, that's just making me cry, for the people that are scared to go online.
Right. And like I was too. Like I was like, what are people? And I think the big conversation too was like, well, what are people going to think if like that I like grew up with, or that people that know, like what are people going to think? It's like, who cares? It's not for them.
Right.
If you don't like it, the unfollow button's right there.
Other people's opinions, they don't matter, and they're none of my business.
None of my business.
That's the mindset I truly have. Like I'm just doing the best I can, and you can have an opinion, but it's really not my business. I don't really care.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Your opinion has nothing to do with me and everything to do with you. And I think once you I think going back to kind of the extraction of self, where you have this feeling, and like we'll just paint our avatar girl right now. You have this feeling where you're like, I wanna start speaking. I wanna start sharing. So it's like pulling out those pieces of you, like, what do I want to talk about? What do I want to share? What does that look like for me? And maybe you had, you got through a traumatic and toxic relationship. So you want to speak on relationships and how to, build a deeper relationship with yourself and attract the right partner.
Yeah.
So then you kind of dive into, okay, these were the pain points for me, so that you can connect with them. You can hit them on that vulnerability scale so that you're already meeting them where they're at. And then you kind of go into, okay, these are some ways that I would start. These are some ways that you could do this and this and this. And I think for me, even like in dissecting myself a little bit, I really had to get very comfortable with like that type of reflection, because I also figured out with myself that because some things had been so hard physically, it was very easy to be avoidant of how bad things were, to keep yourself safe. People talk about attachment styles a lot, and I definitely, as I had gotten older, I was like, oh no, I'm definitely conflict avoidant. And maybe not necessarily with other people. Like I feel like we always joke about me being very, not confrontational, but very like direct.
Yes, very.
But I think with myself, I was a little bit more avoidant because maybe it was too hard. And I wonder, if you haven't read on attachment styles, you absolutely should read on attachment styles, because it will really teach you so much, and really yourself and maybe your partner or, and whatnot. But that will teach you so much. And you're like, oh, wow, that makes sense. That makes sense in why I was very comfortable hiding. That made sense in why I didn't want to do this, or why I had a hard time letting myself be seen in who I am. And so I think that self-extraction process is such a great way to start. And what a great goal for the new year.
It's major. I tell people, when you do your personal brand, it is like the deepest way to get to know yourself. It really, truly is. It causes you to look within. What am I denying? What am I hiding? What am I faking?
Yes.
Where am I performing?
What was your, I'm dying to know, what was your like self-extraction, or what was your biggest hesitation to wanting to put yourself online?
Well, I have been online since I was 23 years old.
But 23 is a very primal age as well.
2010.
Yes.
So I have been expressing myself for so long, but if I look back throughout the years, there was an era of performative era. So it was when I became great in business, I had this perception. I was like the girl in the guy's world, the girl only speaking on stages. I was, in a profession where everything was just kind of fake. Like they didn't really tell it like it was. Mm-hmm. And so it was, here's my car. I mean, I did a photo shoot with my car. Mm-hmm. Like, stop. Okay, talk about cringe.
Let's pull the photos up.
I mean, it was a sick gray map Bentley. Really cool.
Okay.
We'll say that.
Okay.
But like, stupid. Who does that?
Well, and also not you.
No.
Yeah.
Not me at all. It was that era of what Instagram was doing. It was
I remember that.
It was just so fake. Mm-hmm. Right? So as I've gotten to know myself, I can do such deeper content. It's really, I don't care. I'll talk about anything basically, and I'll show the sucky moments. And that's why when I got pregnant, it was hard for me, because I'm like, I'm hiding right now, because we wanted to keep it secretive my first few months. Plus I was, spinning half the days, and it was hard because I felt like, oh my gosh, I went from posting regularly to suddenly not showing up. Mm-hmm. And I would have people DMing me, are you okay? Is something wrong? And when I announced my pregnancy, they're like, I knew it. Yeah. I knew something was going on with you. I knew it.
Yeah, because every single morning you're waking up, you're like, good morning. Yeah. And it's like, give me the rundown of what's happening for the day. I can't, okay, a little sidebar. I cannot wait to see some of the like different time stamping and day in the life and routines and all the things that you're going to do this year. And I also can't wait to see your child's closet
Right.
and what
I mean,
they will be wearing
let's
because
do it.
good Lord.
Yeah. I just thank God, like, I've changed and evolved and grown. And I'm sure you even see that with your content, even though you've only been doing this consistently for over a year
Yeah.
now. I mean, I don't know if you guys follow Natalie, but she is so entertaining on the stories.
I got to bring the stories to the feed. I'm a little scared.
My
I shouldn't be, but I'm a
gosh.
little scared.
So she does current events. And when the whole Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni thing went down, I mean, I was hooked on your stories. Hysterical.
I think it's so interesting because again, like going back to what do you want to talk about? How can you get more comfortable yourself? Start that extraction process, but then also like what are things like in your business that you're really interested in talking about, or even in your career that you're leading, but then also like what are things that you're just like maybe subtly passionate about. You guys have heard Emily and I talk about makeup and skincare and beauty and fashion and whatever, but I'm also very interested in pop culture. I've always been very interested in news. I've always said if I didn't work in PR, then I would want to be like an on-air reporter.
Yes.
I wanted to be an on-air sports reporter. And I remember when I was at USC, I was like, I'm going to be the first on-air sports reporter, and all of the athletes are going to have to kneel to be interviewed by me because I'm in a chair. I'm like, okay, well, but I love the news and I always have. And so utilizing your stories is a great way to be able to kind of show some of your personality.
Oh, and have fun with it.
So much fun.
Just have fun and see what people are DMing about, see what they're interacting about. And then you're like, okay, maybe I could turn this into the main feed.
But it was very funny because even some people that I hadn't seen in a long time, they would come up to me and the first thing that they would say is, I really enjoy following you on social media. I'm especially loving the Baldoni and Blake Lively coverage. And I was like, that is so funny because I'm loving it. But some crazy, interesting stories kind of around that as well is that there's so many cool things that you could do. You don't need a professional video editor or videographer to put together your content for you.
No.
There's an amazing feature on Instagram just called the green screen. You can screenshot a timely event, put it on the back of your video. You can make yourself a little bit smaller and you can say, today I'm talking about Blake Lively. And one of the things that she talked about is she just did this XYZ and now she's going to be whatever. And it's so interesting to hear like, oh my gosh, people, I didn't even know that happened. Like, and you're kind of the first one to break it. TikTok does a phenomenal job with this. There's a lot of amazing creators that are like the pop culture, and right when something happens, they're on it. And it's so fun. I think Candace Owens does a really good job with this, obviously, and covering timely events. But it's a fun place to be in. So if you have something that you're really interested in that you could be timely with on your channel, oh girl, put it on the feed.
For sure.
I'm going to have to put some of my sassy stuff on the feed.
Break the news. How do you balance your personal brand with your work?
That's a great question. I don't really know if I have a very honest answer for that. I think I'm sometimes burning the candle at both ends.
Yeah.
But I do think that if you're truly, truly interested and stimulated and passionate about both of them, it doesn't really feel like burnout.
You know, this is actually very true.
Yeah.
100%. Because if you got a bunch of different things going on, if you care about something,
yes,
you will get energy from it.
So much energy. And I think like the speaking aspect, something that really helped me last year was when I did the first kickoff keynote, I talked about attitude and effort, and I talked about my Natitude, which has been my nickname for a long time, which is basically just having an ongoing positive effort and anything through adversity, and just choosing, if you can't control anything else around you, you're going to choose, how you show up with your attitude, and you're always going to, give as much effort as you can. Whether you have 10%, you're going to give 100% of that 10% every day. And that's just always been that way for me with sports and then into my injury and beyond. But I wanted to choose 3 different topics for keynotes because I'm like, if I really want to go all in and I really want to, give the speaking an opportunity and see where it takes me, I want to have 3 things I can talk about. So I did, like I said, the attitude and kind of the mindset piece of it.
Yes.
Then I had the transformation talk, which was like the what is your mountain? Kind of about how everybody has their own mountain, which is very ironic because I got injured on a mountain. So I feel like God's like, got you with that one, girl.
Yeah.
Which, we all know that there's no coincidences, but the mountain talk, and then having like something in business to also share on your career and something of value in that aspect. So having 3 good keynotes that I was excited and passionate about, and then also building a professional website. Building a professional website has been very fun and very exciting, and having a great pitch kit, whether that's something that you want to work on with different brands, whether that's something that, you want to pitch to other speaking opportunities, whether that's something you want to possibly put yourself out there and do more podcasts in whatever realm you're in. Great place to start.
A great place to start. And here's the deal. You just decided and did it. And you got an opportunity, and then you milked that opportunity to get you to the next opportunity. And this is how you build confidence. One of the number one questions I ever get in the DMs is, how do I build confidence? How can I be confident like you? Y'all, we did not start out this confident talking about certain subjects at all. I mean, you should see some of my first speeches. Holy hot mess express, right? And even with new subjects, like you've got to go deep, and you got to repeat it and go deeper and deeper and really understand what it is you're talking about, which breeds confidence over time.
I always say that I think competence is a better word than confidence.
Wow, girl. Wait, hold on. Say that one more time, please.
Because I think competence should be held with higher regard than confidence, because competence can build confidence in the sense that the only way that you build competence is by trying, is by putting yourself out there, is by doing things over and over and over again. And I was talking to Michelle before we started, and like we were talking about how she grew up jumping horses and riding horses. And I'm like, oh, do you like compete and do you this? She's like, yeah, I've been doing it since I've been really little. And I'm like, that's awesome. But you don't just like get on a horse and be like, all right, I'm going to like jump over that. I'm going to do all these things.
I mean,
it's
she
like,
rode at Baylor on scholarship. And
Right.
since she was 5 or 6, she was riding.
100%. So you don't get to do that until you do it over and over, and you fall off a bunch and you hurt yourself and you get back on. And I think that's the best way. And I feel like the most efficient way to build so much confidence in the new year is to just try.
But
just
Natalie,
try.
you know what I think people do? They're like, I'm hot on this today. I'm hot on that tomorrow. I'm hot on and no wonder why you never become an expert at anything, because you're jumping all over the place.
Yeah. Well, I think the consistency is really important on social. Like if you're really wanting to grow, I think it's always very awesome to put together. I don't think you need to be wed to a follower number or an engagement number, but it's great to have a goal.
Yeah.
So if you're like, hey, I'm starting this new year and I have 10,000 followers, and by the end of the year, I really want to hit 30. Then it's like, okay, how much do I need to do each quarter? And what are my KPIs that I want to put together each quarter of how I'm going to get there? And each quarter I'm going to do, if I want to do a video a day, that means I need to do 90 videos. How am I going to do 90 videos? And break that down each week on what that workflow looks like. And if you work a corporate job and you're busy and you travel and you have kids or whatever it is, it's like, okay, what is my time that I need to dedicate to make this happen so I can hit this goal? But if you don't have a plan, you don't have a goal and you don't have a plan and you don't have any of those together, then to think that you're just going to like randomly that's my favorite thing that I love to talk to people about is like, oh, well, where do you get the motivation? I'm like, well, motivation doesn't just come to you. You don't just wake up one day and you're like, oh, I'm grateful. Oh, I'm motivated. Like that doesn't just come to you. You have to put yourself in it. You have to, it's a choice. And so that's something that comes in with all of those different elements at play where I'm like, hey, this is my goal. This is when I'm going to go after it. And this is how I'm going to do it. But
let's go.
You're not just gonna, wake up and I'm like, oh my God, I generated 15,000 followers overnight. I didn't post one thing.
You got to make a real decision and then meet it with a commitment.
Yeah. Maybe if it's the, Coldplay Kiss Cam, I don't know, but that's something that, you have to put in the effort each week. And post your content. If you need some help doing that, then you find the person that help you shoot the content and you figure it out.
What is one of the shifts you're making in 2026? Or what's one of the things you're getting loud about?
Oh my gosh. Okay, in social media or just internally?
Both.
Okay, internally, I am so loud on boundaries. I am so loud on boundaries in that I've learned so much about protecting my peace, and I'm also going to be allowing myself to have rest because God wants us. He wants us to rest.
Good girl.
He rested. So
I didn't know
because
you
I don't rest. That's what I'm going to work on.
This is so good.
I'm going to try. My husband has helped me. He's so calm. He's the calm to my chaos. And I'm just like a little Pomeranian just barking all around. And he's like, maybe some water, maybe a deep breath. And I'm going to try.
When did you fall in love?
Well, Grady and I have been together for like 12 years.
Oh.
And it's so crazy because we actually met at a time where I had just been going through a lot. And we developed such a beautiful friendship. And I remember it was such a fun time because there's so many things that we could talk about that I was like, wow, I've actually, even like men that I had dated, I was like, wow, I've never talked about this with somebody else, like really personal things with my injury. And it was always met with such a safe foundation to share. And I was like, oh, this is I've never felt like this before. And I remember his family, they're from Ireland, and a lot of his family was coming to visit. And he invited me to all these family things, and we had so much fun. And I remember they had left, and my family was having like a family party, and my mom had asked me, she's like, so at this point, still friends. And she was like, so like, is Grady going to bring like a date? And I'm like, well, why would he bring a date? And she's like, well, why wouldn't he bring a date? And I'm like, oh, I don't want him to bring a date. And it was so funny because my best friend was like, why don't you just tell him that? Why don't you just tell him that he's it and all of it? And I was like, I gotta wait. I gotta wait this one out. I gotta let him do it. Long story short, I had to tell him, and we've been together ever since. And it's so crazy because like for him and I, when I met him, I never thought that I was gonna travel out of the country. He's the one who told me, he's like, you gotta get a passport, babe. I'd never been out of the country. I didn't even have a passport. You got to get a passport. He took me over to Ireland. I got to meet all of his family.
Aww.
And we had the coolest adventure ever. And traveling has been such a fun part of our relationship where I've gotten to just see so many things. And traveling in a chair, it's not for the weak, I will say.
Right.
But I always, again, share on my channel that everything can be hard if you let it be hard forever. Like, everything is hard. From the second I wake up every single morning, from having a tight body and spasticity and discomfort, from the second I get into my chair to getting dressed to having to have help with things, like everything is hard. Traveling is hard. Mm-hmm. Like, does that mean I'm never going to go? I'm not going to try. I'm not going to do any of those things. You just have to create your relationship with hard. And I know a lot of people talk about like choosing your hard. You have to choose like, okay, what am I going to, because if I sat every morning and I was like, oh, another day, gotta struggle with this, gotta do this, we wouldn't be sitting here. We wouldn't be friends.
No.
We wouldn't have attracted each other.
No.
We wouldn't, it wouldn't happen I'm not gonna let my injury, and I hope people listening that have gone through hard things, just don't let it take more away from you than it already has. You know? And I try to actively do that each day. Sometimes it's easier than others.
That was a beautiful statement.
Thank you.
I sense it right now. Someone went through a horrible divorce listening to this. It's over. Move on, crouton.
Move on, crouton.
Move forward.
Yeah.
Move forward.
And also, like, one thing that I really gives me so much inspiration at the beginning of the year is that it is a new year.
Let's go,
new year.
It is a
new year. Let's start the extraction process and like get those feelings out. And because they're valid, if you have gone through a divorce or you're battling with body dysmorphia or an eating issues or whatever it may be, it's like those are real.
Totally.
But I think one thing that has been really helpful for me is that I've never tried to put any type of anger or resentment of my situation on other people. Sure, I have my bad days, and maybe my husband or my mom like gets, maybe my sister, but it's like, and they get that. But for the most part, like I've always taken responsibility for myself, and I've always been like, you know what? Even if I don't feel great, like I'm gonna take responsibility on how I show up. I'll give a little TMI because we're girls and we can get honest here. Earlier this week, last week, I had a horrible bladder infection, which is very common with spinal cord injuries. And I had a big shoot at work. And it would have been really easy for me to just say, I'm sick, I can't go. But I organized it and I lead the team. And, I want to make sure that everything is getting done in the way that it should be. And I show up. Yeah, I show up when things are hard. And I've done this over and over. But was I uncomfortable the entire time? Did I have to step out multiple times to go to the bathroom? Yes. But at the end of the day, I was proud of myself for going, and I was proud of myself for following through and showing up when I said I would.
Wow. Be impeccable with your word
Big
for
time.
agreements. That's what you do.
Yeah.
I love you. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
You're fire.
You're fire. Well, I think everybody listening knows this about you. And even if they don't know you personally, you've done that for so many of us. Like, you have been that friend in such a kind way where you have said the things that you see unapologetically, and not in a mean way, just in a, I see you for who you are. Like, you're so intuitive, and obviously you're so anointed in this capacity, but it's like, you've always said that to people. And I think people listening, don't be scared to do that for your girls.
That's right.
And don't be scared. And if your girls can't do that around you, and other mentors, like, that's not it. I want to have somebody in my life that looks at me and sees me for me and knows who I am, and can tell me, like, hey, you're meant for so much more, and I would love to see you do this. You should consider it, and whatever, because it totally changed me. And I'm so grateful for everything in between. And like I've always said, you've always been like the big sister that I've never had. And I've always had to be the big sister and the therapist to all my friends. And so to have one in my corner has been, I think, nothing short of transformative in my professional life and my personal life.
Iron sharpens iron.
Big time.
And you gotta have it. You gotta have it in your friendships.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I love you.
I love you. Where can people find you?
They can follow me on Instagram at Natalie Buchoz and get along for the ride. There's going to be a lot of pop culture this year.
Let's go.
There's going to be a lot of faith. And honestly, there's going to be a lot of hard things that you don't want to hear.
Oh, she's going to get spicy.
Yeah, very spicy on the feed.
Yes. Start to figure out what it is you want to talk about. Even if you're not crystal clear, just start posting, guys. Start showing up. You'll start to navigate, don't want to talk about this, want to talk about this, but you just have to do it. Natalie was not around, okay, virtually.
4 photos on my Instagram.
Yeah, 4 photos. She was one of those creeper people that would watch your stuff, but you'd go to try to find out about her and you couldn't find out.
Ghost.
Don't be a creeper. Go build your personal brand in 2026. Until next time, we'll see you later.